Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're discussing a controversial decision that could have serious implication for the UK's post-Brexit trade landscape. Keir Starmer's government has scrapped plans to roll out not for EU stickers on British food items like meat, fish, dairy products and more. But this decision has raised concerns not only within the UK but also in relation to the Windsor framework, an agreement that underpins the UK's trade arrangements with Northern Ireland and the European Union. So this decision simply is a win for British businesses, or could it actually breach the terms of the Windsor framework? And what will the EU's reaction be to this unexpected shift? We'll break it all down, what this decision means, why it matters, and whether the UK government might be opening the door to serious trade and political challenges. The Not For You stickers were supposed to be post-Brexit labels indicating that certain food items sold in British supermarkets, such as meat, dairy and fish, were not compliant with EU standards and could not be exported to EU member states. And this measure was part of the Windsor framework, a post-Brexit deal designed to govern the movement of goods between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland as well, ensuring that the EU single market is protected while maintaining frictionless trade within the UK internal market. The stickers were originally slated to come into force by October 24, and the idea behind this policy, initiated by Rishi Sunak's Conservative government, was to make sure that goods sold across the UK would be clearly marked if they did not meet EU regulations and don't need to be checked. And this would allow British food producers to operate freely within Great Britain and Northern Ireland, while still complying with Northern Ireland Protocol rules, which essentially kept Northern Ireland in the EU single market for goods. But now, with Keir Starmer's Labour government in charge, the plan to roll out these stickers has been scrapped indefinitely. The decision to scrap the Not For EU labels follows months of pressures from British food and drink producers. Industry groups have been warning for some time that this new labeling system would impose unnecessary costs and logistical hurdles on businesses, especially during a cost of living crisis. And companies estimated that implementing the new labeling requirements would have cost the sector hundreds of millions of pounds, adding to the already rising prices of essential food products like milk, butter, meat and fish. And Judith Bryans, the chief executive of Dairy UK, which now welcomed the government's decision, noting that had the labeling gone ahead, it would have caused chaos within the food industry. And many businesses had expressed confusion and frustration, unsure of how to proceed without a clear update from the government. For British businesses, this move is seen as a win, reducing red tape and avoiding further price hikes for consumers. And Karen Betts, the chief executive of the Food and Drink Federation, noted earlier this year that implementing these labels would have further discouraged investment in the sector at a time when it is already struggling post-Brexit. While businesses might be breathing a sigh of relief, the bigger question here is whether this decision violates or undermines the Windsor framework. So let's take a step back and remember what the Windsor framework was designed to do. It was crafted to address the complex issue of trade between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and the Republic of Ireland, which is in the EU. And the framework ensures that goods moving between Great Britain and Northern Ireland meet EU standards if they are to enter the EU single market. In this context, the Not For EU labels were a critical part of keeping these goods clearly separated and not having to do lots of checks. And by scrapping these labels, the UK government may be loosening its commitment to ensuring that food products sold in Great Britain are clearly distinguishable from those that meet EU standards. And this raises questions about whether British goods could end up on the shelves in Northern Ireland, and with that then the Republic of Ireland, without the necessary regulatory oversight. And this decision could be seen by the EU as a potential violation of the Windsor framework, which was meant to ensure that Northern Ireland remains aligned with EU regulations to avoid a hard border with Ireland. Without these labels, it becomes much harder to ensure that products being sold in Northern Ireland meet the necessary EU standards if they don't want to have a full check line there. In other words, there is now a risk that non-EU compliant products could slip through the cracks, undermining the entire agreement. Given the potential breach of the Windsor framework, the EU could respond in several ways. First, there could be diplomatic fallout. The EU has consistently expressed concern about any regulatory divergence that threatens the integrity of the single market. And while the EU has been relatively accommodating in the wake of Brexit, this decision might trigger a tougher stance, especially if Brussels believes that the UK is backtracking on its commitments once again. And one possible reaction could be the tightening of the customs checks on goods moving between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, because that's what the stickers were supposed to, you remember the green lane. If the EU believes that British products are no longer adequately labelled or regulated, they might insist on more stringent inspections to ensure that EU standards are maintained in Northern Ireland. And another potential consequence could be legal action. The EU could argue that the UK's decision to scrap these labels violates the terms of the Windsor framework, potentially leading to arbitration or even a formal trade dispute. And the framework was, after all, a legally binding agreement, and any deviation from its terms could have serious consequences for the UK's relationship with the EU. For Keir Starmer's government, this decision might seem like a way to ease the burden on British businesses, but it carries significant political risks. Starmer has promised to improve relations with the EU, but this move might do the opposite. And furthermore, it raises questions about UK integrity. If British food items aren't clearly marked, how can the government guarantee that EU standards won't be breached in Northern Ireland if those items are not checked then? And this could damage trust between the UK and EU even more and create new friction in the future trade negotiations. And moreover, if the EU reacts with increased customs checks or legal action, it could complicate the UK's ability to trade freely with Northern Ireland and the wider EU market, leading to disruptions in the supply chain that could hurt businesses and consumers alike. So to sum up, Keir Starmer's decision to scrap the Not for EU stickers may be a short-term win for businesses in Great Britain, but it could have long-term consequences for the UK's relationship with the EU and within the UK, because there will have to be checks again for Northern Ireland. And they risk undermining the Windsor framework, which was carefully negotiated to keep Northern Ireland's trade borders open and frictionless. And for now, it's unclear how the EU will respond, but one thing is certain. This decision has opened up a new front in the ongoing challenges of post-Brexit trade. And whether the Labour government can navigate this situation without causing further disruption remains to be seen. So thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments, do you think the UK should have kept the Not for EU stickers, or was it the right call by Starmer's government? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights on the UK politics. See you next time, and the next video is right here in the end screen.